Welcome, one and all, to another fantastic episode of Justice League Revisited. I am one half of the hosting group that takes you on this odyssey into the Justice League animated series. James Enstall of Geek to Me Radio, right there on the other side of the Zoom screen, martini in hand, sipping gently as she pulls the olive out and dips it back in, Susan Eisenberg.
That's so me. Yes, sipping my gin martini. Hello, and I'm back as a hostess. You know, I took a break, and now I'm back. So we will be asking questions of our guests today. Do we want to tell the good people who we have on today on our show?
Well, since we are once again covering Maid of Honor, and we had our fabulous guest that you missed out on, Susan Eisenberg, the voice of Wonder Woman. You'll Google her, you'll find out.
Okay.
But she was great. But we had questions came up, and it's like, you know what? That'd be a great one for the director. So we have Dan Riba joining us on this particular episode to go into some of the stuff that Susan couldn't answer for us. As much of knowledge as she had, she simply couldn't answer all the questions we had. So we've got Dan Riba on. He obviously directed this episode. Dwayne McDuffie, the writer of Maid of Honor. This is the 16th story overall. Episodes 33 and 34 in the run of the series. Episodes 7 and 8 in the second season. It dropped on October 18th of 2003, Try that again. Sorry. Starring Dory Barton as Princess, Phil Morris as Vandal Savage, Alfred Molina as the King, Larry Drake as Vox, Dan Castellaneta from The Simpsons as the Minister, Jennifer Hale as the Chambermaid. A great cast featuring Wonder Bat. So for all of you Wonder Bat fans out there, buckle up. We got Dan Riba talking about it, how it kind of happened along the way here. Our second installment in the Wonder Bat romance, I guess.
Journey. It's their journey, and I'm here for every step of it. And I can't wait to hear for what, Dan's insights, because obviously he was in different rooms than I was in. So he has insight into things that I do not. So I'm really, really looking forward to this.
As am I. So without further ado, the director of the episode, Dan Riba, joins us once again for delving into Maid of Honor. Dan, we appreciate your time, as always.
My pleasure.
You're like our co-host. You're our official co-host at this point. We were doing this episode together, James and I, and we tried to attack it on our own and revisit it on our own. And all we kept saying to each other, "Wow, I wonder what Dan Riba would say about this issue, and what would Dan think? And if only we had Dan here." And then we said, "Okay, how do we rectify this?" I think we asked Dan to do another episode, and here you are.
And here I am.
and Susan mentioned, she's like, "Oh, we don't want to get to the point where people are seeing our number pop up on the caller ID and being like, oh, those two again." So hopefully, Dan, we haven't gotten to that point with you yet.
Well, even if we did, I don't think he's going to say it on the podcast. So let's make this short so we can let him go and he'll come back again.
I'm coming back. Don't you worry.
Okay, good. Okay. So you were saying before we started recording that you like this that you love this episode, and I'm a little partial to it myself. And so tell us why you love it.
Well, the script was wonderful for one thing. Dwayne just knocked that out of the park. There's just this marvelous stuff that's just we got away with some lines that I didn't think we would. And so that was like, whoa, okay, all right, they let us say that. All right, cool. But the other thing is just like the rapport between Bruce and Diana is like really, really charming. It's really cool. It kind of just knocks things up a little bit higher, in that it's really, really cool. It's not quite a romance yet. It's not really, but it's clearly the hint of something that's a very close bond that they share. And it's really sweet.
I really so sweet. That. Yeah, and I have to say I'm smiling right now because rewatching it was just I'm as charmed by it as anybody could be. It's like I can really stand outside it and watch the two of them. on screen and the dancing and all of it. Like I'm just, I'm such a romantic anyway. And so watching the two of them, I get really swept up in it. Like, oh, those two kids, I want them to work it out.
Yeah.
We had a lot of questions about Wonderbat. And I know you've been asked a gazillion times about them and the origin of them. But I think the one thing that we do get asked a lot is, was it always the intention of the producers to create a romance between them? In other words, I'm assuming Green Lantern and Hawkgirl, you knew going into the first episode that there was going to be a romance between them going down the road. Did you all know that there would be a romance between Batman and Wonder Woman?
No, that wasn't anything that was planned. It was organic, and it came out of the show. It came out of the pairing. We just noticed it worked. It worked well, and it just kept, but there was no intent from the get-go to go, oh yeah, let's do this. It just, no, it wasn't a thing. And it's something that's like, it's not in the comics. I don't think there's any history of anything like that. If anything, Superman and Wonder Woman have had relationship in the comics from time to time, but this is like, no, this was something that was just clearly organic, and it came out of that one moment. And so it was something that we knew people were reacting to, but we were reacting to it as well. It just happened.
How did you know?
That's the best, and that's the best way. That's right. When it's really cool.
Agreed.
Is when something is natural and organic and just comes out of the characters themselves. They lead the way.
How did you know? Did you get feedback from anybody? Because it's not like we were on social media. We didn't have social media then. It wasn't like you could get. There were chat rooms, I'm assuming. Mm-hmm. So you probably got feedback from the audience on the chat rooms. Is that?
I think so. Mm-hmm. We got it from somewhere. So people were talking about it, so we just went with it. But it wasn't really just to please the audience. I mean, it was really us too. We kind of saw that it was an interesting dynamic, and we just kind of oh, this is working. Let's keep it going.
We were also asked last week about when Diana knew for the first time that Bruce was that Batman was Bruce.
Honestly, I would think this episode. I mean, I can't imagine. She spends so much time with Bruce and that voice, and just they both Bruce and Batman sort of take care of her in a way. Mm-hmm. They're watching over her. They're very protective of her. At the dance floor. At the it's just okay. Pulling her away from the crowd, and Bruce is just sweeping her off her feet, literally, and then Batman warning her about the situation and what's going on, and it's just it was so clear that was the case, and so she's not a dummy. She saw it.
So she did not know at the beginning when she's dancing with Bruce Wayne, but by the end she puts it together. Yeah,
I mean, I don't think she would have spent any time with Bruce Wayne otherwise. You would have just been like a famous figure on TV, or in the media. I don't think any of these characters ever really interacted with him before this. So it was he's an investor in this venture, probably, so he has a reason to be there. Mm-hmm. And so it was a logical thing that he was there, and so yeah. It made sense.
Well, like we said, we knew that she had to know his identity, because at the end she says to Batman, you still owe me a dance. And he says, I don't know what you're talking about. And she says, okay, if you want to play it that way, that's fine. So at that point, we know she knows.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. James?
I'll point out our friends at DC Question 22 on Twitter said this is their favorite Wonder Woman centric episode of Justice League, which I think a lot of people would feel that way. I've got a question here that I thought was very interesting from our friend at Steely Dill, DYL on Twitter, with Vandal Savage popping up out of the remains of the castle at the end. kind of mangled and obviously bruised. Did he have to be shown after the mansion is destroyed so it didn't seem like he was killed, like a standard in practice this thing? Or was that just to show, hey, guys, he's still immortal, like Jaws popping up out of the water at the end of The Spy Who Loved Me, for those Bond fans out there?
This was intended to be our homage to James Bond. So more of the latter, it really is. And also it was like we were trying to make it as scary as possible, like Carrie, the hand coming out of the door.
Yeah.
But it was like we wanted to shock people with it, but it really was, he's immortal, and we wanted to show that. He's not going down this easy, and no castle blowing up on top of him is going to take him down.
Yeah.
It's like, no, he's going to be around for a while, a long, long while. So, but we wanted to also show that, but a castle falling on you has consequences, it's not like it's not like he's dusting himself off. Oh yeah, I'm okay.
Right.
It's he still gets hurt. He just can heal.
And at Trumbull Comic on Twitter, John Trumbull says he loves hearing you talk about how obviously this was the point where you kind of started to lean into the Wonder Bat thing that we mentioned. It was gleaned in The Brave and the Bold when we see that little kiss that she gives him. Was this another kind of dip the toe in the water and see how things go? Or was this just, it's another step on the road and we're going to keep slowly building this? Do you remember at the time the mindset of where this is in the relationship status?
Again, it's organic. We're going show by show on this one. So there was no big picture of where we're going to go with it. It was one of those things where the characters were leading us into this. I mean, you'd have to talk to James and Bruce and the people in the writer's room about it. But from what my remembrance of the situation, I don't remember them ever talking about Wonder Bat before. Well, we never talked about it before Brave and the Bold.
Sure,
right.
But I think it was one of those things where, like, yes, tipping our toe in the waters is pretty much a good explanation. It's let's see where this goes, and it just sort of went to a point where we just kept it going. So that they eventually even kiss in the later on, but we haven't gotten to that show yet.
Not yet.
Spoilers.
Slowly moving there.
Spoilers.
At Diana_Prince41, who is a lovely Wonder Woman icon for her avatar. Do you think if this show wasn't marketed for kids, could we have seen a potential romance between Diana and Princess Audrey, which is something Susan and I talked about yesterday, because they had great chemistry, to be honest. Also, how come we never see Audrey again after this episode?
I'm not sure, honestly. I don't know. I mean, she's a party girl. I'm sure she, she has lots of fun, but I think she was sort of based more on certain royals that were famous, that we knew of in the 70s and stuff that were always, it's that kind of thing. I mean, there was a little bit of Audrey Hepburn from, that idea, but then darker, more like a real, like the real princesses that were, in Monaco and stuff like that, that were always known for partying and stuff like that. So this is a nod to that era and that kind of, those kind of princesses. So, I don't know.
It was funny because when we were rewatching it, we were talking about it, James and I, and we were saying, like, there are definitely moments where you could see, like her carrying her down, and then she touches her hair in a very suggestive way when they're on the balcony. Again, like, I didn't play it like that at all. I played it like this. I was her mentor and I was looking out for her, and it was a watchful eye. It's not like I got the direction. Susan flirted a little more with her. I mean, that wasn't the direction we were going in.
But yeah, I mean, she was clearly trying to corrupt Wonder Woman. I mean, that's
yes, 100%.
And Wonder Woman's like, okay, well, we'll see how far this goes. It's like,
Well, James and I were talking about when they're at the disco and Audrey brings over like the hunky guys.
Yeah.
And I was shocked. I was shocked at Wonder Woman's reaction when she's like, "Oh, like who are these tall glasses of water?" And I was shocked because I thought she'd be like, okay, what are we supposed to do with them?
Exactly.
And she was a little bit, she was enthralled by by these guys. And James and I were both like, huh? Like, look at Wonder Woman taking a walk on the wild side.
Yeah, she literally walks around with a buff, shirtless guy who swims through the ocean. So I can't imagine that these hunks would have had much to offer after seeing Aquaman.
That's true.
But,
that's true.
That's Aquaman too, so who knows?
Right. And he's not available.
Right.
Yeah.
And he smells like kelp. So there's
So do you remember talking to Dwayne? Like, do you remember any conversations with Dwayne about, because we obviously don't have Dwayne, and we mentioned him so many times in our last conversation because we both love this script.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you can share? Because I wasn't in those rooms.
I know.
I
just remember how proud he was that he got the bangs line in there. It was one of those things. If
Which
it can
one?
be arranged. Oh, she plans to go out, before her,
Yes.
Audrey mentions, going out with a bang. Several,
right.
if it can,
Right.
several,
Right.
if it can be arranged.
Right. Yes.
And that was, okay, or whatever. And then the other thing that I think he was proud of is the feet of clay comment, which
Yes.
alludes to the comic book origins of Wonder Woman that go over the heads of most people that aren't aware of that. But it's
and then doesn't she say you have no idea?
You have no idea. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's great.
So those are the moments I remember him talking about. That was kind of fun.
Mm. We also, Dan, we talked a lot, James and I did, about the montage when the wedding is taking place and Wonder Woman's in the forest and battling, and you don't hear any of the sounds in the forest. And it just reminded me so much of The Godfather.
Yes.
And so much of that montage in The Godfather with the baptism. And it was the most cinematic sequence.
Yes, it was.
And well done, whoever put that. I mean, it was brilliant.
It was a while back, and I'm not sure if it was Bruce or James that made some of those suggestions and edit. I mean, I know I think Brett was doing a lot of the action, but I think those juxtapositions were planned, in the script as well. But we really kind of like goosed it later on. And the music idea was brilliant, and
it was
again,
brilliant.
I don't think. That had been written. I don't think, that was, I don't remember, because I'm not in the music sessions with the musicians, but I was so on board because this is like a James Bond score. So many of it's so evocative of that music that, and it was, and that scene was
spectacular.
Godfather. It was really wonderful. It was wonderful.
It really, really was. And we were talking about that a lot because there've been a few of those. There was another one with Wonder Woman when she goes back and she's with Steve Trevor, where you see the battling, but it's like there are all these other things going on simultaneously. And again, like cinematic. I mean, you dismiss cartoons, quote unquote, at your own peril, because there's so much there.
I love juxtapositioning things. It's really, it's really fun. And again, it's one of those things where sometimes it's planned very scrupulously, and sometimes it's one of those things that we build in the editing room. And that's a thing that Joe Gall and Bruce and I would move things around and play with them. And so if something is working, you always find a way to make it work better when the footage comes back and you play with it some more.
Well, they say so much of making movies is done in the editing room. Editing.
You'd be surprised at how much. I mean, really is even. And you think cartoons, because they're written and they're drawn, and it's like there's not as much spontaneity, and we don't do coverage the same way you do for live action, and the lengths of the scenes, the way that they're edited. Traditionally people don't think of animation as being an editor's medium, but the way we do it, it was. Joe Gall was just as much a part of the process of creating the story as we were. They were building stuff. We were moving things around and cutting things just right and building scenes and it was magic.
Wouldn't you have given anything, James, to have been in that room to watch all that take place?
So many times when I watch a lot of these episodes, I think, man, just to be in the booth watching, Susan across from Alfred Molina and in Dory Barton and recording stuff, and obviously to have all 7 of you in the room to watch that, watch Andrea being like, Susan, put your phone down and listen, things like that would have probably happened, would have been so cool. But yeah, it's just to watch the storyboards get made and watch Dan put everything together. This is, I wish we could know now, knowing what we know then, knowing what we know now, someone would have recorded this and done a behind the scenes process.
Yes.
Oh,
it would have been so cool to have an outtake on the DVDs.
No kidding, right?
Right. I mean, that honestly, like, that is such a missed opportunity because we were interviewed. The actors were interviewed. I remember we did a behind the scenes with Phil Lamar being our, he was interviewing all of us, and it was great and it was fun, and it's fun to look back on it. But man, for my money, because I was in that room with the actors, and I'm so grateful, obviously, but to know how you put together this show, to watch the composers, the writers in the writers' room, just a snippet of what went down there would have been fascinating.
Oh, absolutely. I wish we had recorded that stuff.
Was that ever a discussion to do it? Was anyone ever?
No, we were too busy making a show.
Yeah, right.
It's like,
right.
And it's like, and the other thing was that stuff is always so formal and corporate.
Yes.
That they always have to have the right person videotape this stuff, and it has to be all sanctioned and approved, and every little frame has to be, it's one of those things where and they make a big deal out of that. It's never casual,
Right.
So I remember Alfred came in early, and there was some ADR going on. I don't know who was recording, but he was fascinated, and he was staring like behind, we were like watching from outside the booth, and he was just sort of like staring and soaking in the whole process. I don't know how much voiceover he had done outside of
None.
Right?
No,
so he's just sort of absorbing the whole thing. He's just kind of watching and just friendly as ever. And I didn't recognize him initially. I was like, and then as he's I'm like, oh, okay, what are the actors, and then I'm like, duh. I mean, he had not been Doc Ock yet, but I knew him from films as well. I mean, that's obvious. I knew who he was, but it didn't dawn on me until after we oh, who's this fellow? Okay, well, sure.
Yeah, no, he sat next to me in the session, and I remember him saying, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's what was going on. But he was so casual and friendly and nice about it. So he's just sort of like, okay. And he's just kind of soaking it all in. And that's obviously the wheels are turning, going, all right, they're sitting in that booth, they're doing this. And he's just kind of like trying to like map out what his day is going to be like,
Yeah, no. And we were saying when we recorded a couple of days ago, we wish there had been more of King Gustav. Like,
I know.
I loved the character. I loved it was just a very sweet character, and it would have been great had he survived and they had, had more of a relationship. I loved Audrey and her dad. I mean, I just thought it was. I mean, and we talked about Audrey a lot. We talked about Dory in the other episode. We talked about Phil Morris as Vandal Savage because he just hits it out of the park every time he does that character. He's brilliant in that character. I'm
just surprised, like Dan Castellaneta. We had Homer Simpson and Larry Drake, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Larry Drake.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, but I said, but no one said no. I mean, that's the thing. Like, Andrea could really ask most people, and it didn't matter if they were on a television series or in a features. Most people said, "Yeah, I'll do it."
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny though. We had gotten no's from people back in the 80s and or in the 90s on Superman and Batman and stuff. A few here and there, just people that just didn't like they were like, I don't know, but I don't know.
Who were they, Dan? Name names. Who were they? Let's publicly shame them. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, I was honestly, I was mad. I was mad because then James Coburn went on to do Monsters Inc. And I was like, oh, so cartoons aren't beneath you. But, but it's like feature and a lot of that stuff are agents dealing with that stuff. But Patrick McGowan, we'd reached out to play Dr. Fate.
Stop it. We talked about Patrick McGowan.
And that was heartbreaking because, we had always planned the character to look like him and everything. And he's just so smart and he, but he just has to have more control over what he does. I think it's just the fact that he can't just say yes without reading a script and knowing what's going on. And it is more about that because he is a very ethical person that has to know what the character is, what it's about. And he's not about to just say yes to anything without knowing. So that's what I think it was more about, not just like turning his nose down to animation. I think it was just like,
and by the time our show came around, I think people had a lot of respect for animation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think maybe,
that's
Super Friends, they would have been like, that's a pass. But I think for Justice League, there was a deep, or they just didn't know anything about it.
Right.
I think Alfred was that person who just didn't know much about it and was open to it and wanted to do it, but had just never done it before.
Right. I mean, I told you about Terrence Stamp almost doing the show.
Yeah.
So that was one of those things where he called Andrea and it's like, oh, I'm in town. I want to do one of these. And we're like, oh my gosh. But we were doing Better World at the time and we had no guest stars. So there was no guest villain or any role for him for us. So we couldn't do it. It was like,
Our friend over at, we all know James at Watchtower Database, was asking about, is there any recollection, Dan, of how the Kasnian language was developed? Is it just some other language played off as Kasni, or do you guys go full Tolkien with it?
He would ask that question.
I know, bastard.
I know that it was made up, yes, but it isn't full Tolkien. I think there's a little Hungarian in there. There's something like and I don't know what else is kind of thrown in. There's like, certain dishes that they're kind of like inverted and things like that because the rhythms feel very European. It feels so. It has that sort of Hungarian, Latvian, going on. There's something there that's like it just the rhythms just feel right.
100%.
So
I love that. I love that Batman spoke it fluently.
He speaks everything.
Of course
he does.
Of course he did.
Yeah.
And the flashbacks, I love the flashback. That is such a great device that is used so often in the show. And I don't think everyone can always pull that off. I mean, it's funny. I watch a lot of film noir. There are a lot of flashbacks in film noir. Sometimes you're like, really? A flashback right now for this character? I loved it. It gives you some perspective. It gives you history. Watching that flashback, I have like a flashback and then I wrote a little heart next to it because I just dug it. It was so good. Did you, as you were watching the episode as the director, what was your takeaway having not seen it probably in a little bit? Were you pleased with the final result?
Yes, but as a director, and animation is very tricky. So I'm always of the mind of like, oh, I wish I'd done this. I wish I'd asked this. I wish we had pushed. I'm always looking at the flaws. I'm like, oh, the dancing. There's some awkwardness in the background, the way that the characters move, or the way the background pans, and you're like, oh, I wish we could have smoothed this out, or and even like the crowd when Wonder Woman is pulled away from the crowd. I was hoping it didn't seem as urgent as much because you have one line, because we didn't overlap lines. We were never allowed to overlap lines, and because we didn't want to have lips flapping for the strangers. But there wasn't quite as much urgency for Bruce to pull her away, because it's like you have one question and another question and another question, and it really should have felt more like, it's like everyone at once. So I wish we had underlaid more walla, like crowd noise behind that. So it sounds like more people are going to start bothering her, and he pulls her away. And we had a little bit before, a lot of murmuring before, but I think we were scared to have to but we had enough back of heads and enough people's mouths covered, which I'm kind of disappointed we didn't do it in post, that we didn't add more blah 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 blah.
Right. It's interesting though, because I was just going to use that word. I did feel the urgency. I did.
You did? Okay, good.
Yeah,
good.
I did. I mean, that didn't jump out at me.
More. Okay, that jumped out at me. It's like I wish there was more. But
I just think she's uncomfortable being asked the questions and being the focus and the center of attention. And he just rescued her from that. And one of the things James and I talked about was like the idea that yes, he looks after her. Yes, he rescues her. But the brilliant thing about the two of them is that they're always rescuing and looking out for each other. And it's not just this, don't worry your pretty little head about it, I'll take care of you kind of thing. She saves his ass just as much as he saves hers.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's like that Pretty Woman moment, where it's like, what happens when, the rest, you rescue her, well, she rescues him right back. And I think, that was so important to not to have her be in need of rescue all the time, that she could take care of herself and she could stand on her own. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt. Any more thoughts about the episode as you were watching? Because I had a question.
Okay. There is one thing, and I actually boarded that section, or I reboarded a section because I really wanted her removing her shoes in a really sexy kind of natural way.
Yeah.
That really felt like, the way a woman actually removes shoes.
Yeah.
And the fact that Batman is in the room staring at her doing this, it's so voyeuristic. It's so weird. And you're like, oh, okay. So how long was he planning on, it's like, is he going to watch her change her clothes completely? What's going on here? And, so it's kind of like, oh, okay. But, he's Batman, he's like a doctor. It's okay.
It's interesting. I didn't get that feeling at all, honestly, because he goes off and he starts to pull his tie off and then he turns around and then I was like, he realized, I thought it was just, he realized, oh, she's got this. I don't even need to step in because he pops an hors d'oeuvre, which I love that little moment.
No.
He's talking at the room.
Oh, okay.
With Batman.
Sorry.
When she comes... Right. Yeah. And he's sitting in the chair and she comes in and takes her shoes off.
Gotcha. Okay.
And he's just staring. He's just there in the chair.
Yeah. I was on another scene. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. But it feels very Bondy also. It's like Batman as James Bond. It seems like a very Sean Connery thing to do,
Yes.
It's like.
No, completely and totally. And if you can't write a couple of those scenes as a writer and a fan, then what are you doing? But I did have a question about, because we talked about this, James and I, in the scene where Audrey in her, her nightgown comes in to confront Vendel Savage, and he does the press conference. And she's in the room when he's doing the press conference, but you don't see a reaction shot from her.
Right.
And I was surprised that you didn't see that because I kept waiting for it. Was there a reason that you don't see it? Where he reveals what his evil plan is.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought that you would see her be like, I thought you would see her face react to it.
Right. Yeah, no, it was a misstep. We should have. Clearly. Yeah, no, that's a great idea. And I don't know why. I was probably timing. It wasn't we're, a lot of shots and we're trying to move things along. But her story is so important to the thing. And her turn, from supporting him to realizing, oh, he is a monster.
Right.
That was also kind of going gradually because she was defending him against Wonder Woman and stuff, and what are you doing? And
James and I were also talking about how when you see the close up of Wonder Woman being held, and I was like, really, would those hold her? We were just like, she's a superhero. She can't break out of that. We just had a good laugh about it.
That there is a shtick about Wonder Woman from the old days, from the 40s, and I think it's like one of those Marsden kind of I don't know, I'm going somewhere here with this, but it's that weird S&M kind of thing that he has, that one of her weaknesses is actually being bound.
Right.
So she has trouble. I think that was a thing where she actually kind of loses her powers when her thing. And I don't think we ever leaned into that necessarily. We were like, it's like the yellow Green Lantern weakness. We never really like acknowledged that kind of stuff. And I think they tossed that away back in the 40s, So, but there is that thing,
Okay.
If you want it to be there,
That's funny.
Speaking of the other leaguers, I was noticing when I watched it yesterday that, we've talked on this show before with the writers, the directors and everything, how certain episodes don't feature all 7 characters. And people have asked when we asked for the questions, why wasn't Superman in this one? Why wasn't Wonder Woman in this one? This one, to me, and both of you can correct me if I'm wrong or you think something else, I feel like it very much made sense exactly why it was John and Wally and Jean, because we have that exchange when Green Lantern says they're military people, they'll understand. Flash, the naive, idealistic one, says, we'd do it for you. We wouldn't leave you behind. We'd get everybody out. Mm-hmm. Martian Manhunter is that step removed. He's observing this behavior and taking it in. I thought this was one of the first episodes where it made perfect sense why Superman and Hawkgirl weren't included in this particular exchange. Am I just overthinking it, or is that pretty much...
No, that's pretty much. I honestly, I think we have to kind of justify it, but it always makes sense to the story. There's places where Superman would just overpower a thing anyway, so he can't be in the mix. So you have that problem. Instead of having to take him out, it's like, oh, he's just off in another world right now doing something. He's somewhere else. Obviously, he can't be on Earth because, he would come and help, It makes sense. And I think that's the stuff that they figure out in the writer's room, and Dwayne kind of like makes those things clear, that the character's motivations for being there. So that's the genius of Dwayne.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
We had another question also. Let me go back to the Twitter feed here, where they were asking about Vandal Savage. I want to get the name right. It's at Josh Laborde wants to know, was it always the plan to bring back Savage for another episode, or did it just work out that he was the right antagonist for this particular story?
It's a good question.
It is a very good question, and I don't have an answer for that because I wasn't in the writer's room when the story broke. So I don't know why that particular situation, it just made so much sense. It was one of those things where he's, who else? It really kind of, it wouldn't work for Lex. It wouldn't work for any, right. It's like, no, this is Vandal Savage. This is his world domination, big plan,
Well, and if he's immortal, why not use him more than once? I mean,
exactly.
That's
Exactly.
You can use him. You can keep using him.
Yeah.
I thought it was brilliant that he was chosen for this episode. Yeah. It worked perfectly with him and Audrey. And I thought they were great together. Mm-hmm. That's another thing too. I love the little moments. I love when Green Lantern saves Flash and carries him in, and
oh yeah,
he looks out the window and he sees him in peril, and he races to go get him. And you see there's such a humanity to Green Lantern, because usually his character is so prickly.
Yep.
And there he is, just taking care of his little buddy, and it was so sweet, so sweet.
Yeah, it was so cool.
You called him the little buddy. Now I can't help picture Green Lantern as Skipper and Flash as Gilligan.
I know.
It really kind of is. So,
it kind of is. Yeah, it is. But I think also, like with Wonder Woman and Batman having the beginning of the episode, just the two of them, I think it's I love the pairings of the show. Mm-hmm. There's just nothing better than when the 7 of us are together and fighting the good fight and winning. But I also love how when, we have our quiet moments with whether it Wonder Woman and Jean or Flash and Green Lantern, I just, I think the show's so excelled at that, at creating, of course, the big moments and the splashy stuff, but also the smaller moments, the quieter moments. I think really, who else was I going to flirt with on that show besides Batman?
I know.
I mean, really. I mean, he was the only opportunity Wonder Woman had to be flirty.
Yeah.
So I took it.
Yeah,
I mean, she took it.
Yeah.
She took it. I mean, I took it. No, she took it. I mean, yeah. And somebody asked if Kevin and I were in the room together recording when we did this episode, and I didn't remember. And I know that sounds terrible, but
same
you know,
here. I know
he was in New York a lot,
exactly,
because you know he would go back and forth. But I just couldn't remember. I remember recording the episode. I remember saying bonsoir, and I remember all of that. And it was one of my favorite episodes, obviously. But I didn't remember,
But the thing was that he didn't record separate though. Even though he was in New York, he was always with the group.
Right.
You know, it was always live. It was always there. He was always a presence in the room, regardless of whether he was physically there or not. So I totally understand why both of us have trouble remembering which shows he was actually in LA for.
Right.
Because he was always a presence.
There. Yeah. I do remember one time he was not there for a read-through, and Bruce Timm did the read-through with me. And it was so weird and perfect in a way to have Bruce Timm voice Bruce.
Yeah.
And it was really something. I won't forget that one. But that was really cool. Yeah.
Wow. Do you remember which episode that was for?
No, I have a terrible memory. It's awful. I so respect people who come in and remember what they were wearing on the day of the recording.
Gosh, right?
I'm awful.
I know. I wish I had that Mary Lou Henner mind.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like I remember incidences. I remember comments people made. I remember emotions.
Yes.
I remember things that people said here and there. But in terms of like every single detail, and it's like no. I'm not that brain either.
And I love it when somebody says something and it brings a memory into focus that you hadn't thought about.
Oh yeah.
In forever. I feel like we're still talking
that's
about
what the show is all about for me. It's like
right? It just sparks all these memories, which is delightful. Do we have do we want to keep Dan any longer, or do we want to set him free?
That was the majority of the questions we had. And I know he's very busy. He's got his sketches he's doing and his commissions for his upcoming Comic Cons, which, while we've got you, Dan, before we let you go, why not give a plug for where people can see you upcoming here in the next couple of months?
Well, I'm planning on going to Chicago. That's my what is that convention called? Hold on a second. I'll find out. I want to be accurate here.
Is it C2E2 or is it a different Chicago?
I think it's C2E2. Yes. That's
okay.
It. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Really?
It's a great con. It's a great Comic-Con. Yeah, it's terrific.
I kind of felt like I know I have a lot of friends that are going to be there. So
it's a dynamite one.
And I'm so mad because I've the last conventions I go to, I get stuck at my table. I mean, I'd say that's terrible. I love it. I love interacting with friends and I love drawing, believe me. But I forget to walk around. And then
it's hard.
And I like D. Bradley Baker and just all sorts of people were guests, and I didn't get a chance to go and talk to my voice actor friends. So
I always look to see who's going to be there, because I would just kick myself if I didn't make the effort in a moment just to at least to say hello and wave to somebody. Yeah. But like you said, people are busy. Like they're drawing, they're talking to fans, they're signing autographs.
Exactly.
So it's not so. It seems like you'd have time, but really you don't have a lot of time.
It really kind of goes so fast.
It does.
The last convention in Denver was great because I went on my birthday and they sang "Happy Birthday" to me, and it was really cool. I was on a panel, and so it was all like my life. It was really fun.
Dan Riba on panels. Look at Dan Riba going to Denver and going to Chicago and doing C2E2.
I know. Well, So yeah,
it makes me happy.
Yeah.
That should be fun.
All right,
yeah,
so
C2E2 is basically the San Diego Comic-Con of the Midwest, so that should be a good con
it is.
for you.
Right,
it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
And gosh, I saw like people on their way to San Diego and like with all the snafus with the flights and everything like that. I saw Phil Jimenez was like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to make it, kids. He was stuck at Logan Airport. It's just, you make plans and God laughs. That's what my grandpa used to say.
Yeah.
And it's true, although it's funnier in Yiddish, but still it is true.
Well, we appreciate you coming on as always, and like I said, especially this season, and as we get into Justice League Unlimited, we'll be leaning on you again, our third host of the show here. So thank you.
Please ask me back. There's so many shows that I want to talk about, and
Well, it's an open invitation, Dan. I mean, you know that. You're our. I don't want to say our favorite because then we'll offend other people. But Dan, you're our favorite.
Don't say that.
No one say anything. And those people listening, don't tell anybody. Okay. Thank you, Dan. Thank you so much, and have a great time in Chicago. And
thank you.
Just be safe out there, and go meet your people, your fans.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's been wonderful. People have been so kind. They've been so nice.
I think because you're so kind. I think it goes both ways, mister.
Oh.
Now get out of here.
Okay.
Bye, Dan Riba.
There he goes, Dan Riba, one of the best, hardest working, talented, brilliant, radiant with charisma.
He's a cutie patootie. Can we just say it?
Yeah.
I adore that man. And I always have a huge smile on my face when he drops in. I love when he stops by, as it were. And, he's just one of those people that makes you feel happy.
Yeah.
And that's a tall order these days. So I so appreciate him. So thank you, Dan Riba, for helping us, revisit Maid of Honor.
I've revisited it a second time, but there were, like you said, there were those questions like, we need to get Dan on. So luckily he was available, and we had that one. So it's been a while since we've doubled up on an episode, which I like. I feel like we're getting back to our roots.
Well, okay, sure. Listen, there were questions that needed to be answered. We have, so we went to the source, and that's what we do. Those are the kinds of journalists we are.
That's right. And we mentioned during the course of our interview with Dan, I said, man, it'd be great if we had someone videoing the process and we had to see like a making of the Justice League. I kind of feel like audioly speaking, that's what we're doing.
Look at us. Yeah, I think that's true. And I think that's why people are responding to the podcast, because it does give them a glimpse behind the curtain, which I love seeing as well. It just, I can't help but always have some lament that we don't have certain people here.
Yeah, of course.
To ask the questions of, like when this is a perfect example, this episode, because how fantastic would it have been to have had Dwayne on and Kevin, Mr. Kevin Conroy.
Yeah.
And Mr. Dwayne McDuffie. I mean, I think we could have gotten them both, frankly. I think they both would have done an episode but anyway, we still did, what we wanted to do, which was go revisit it and talk about it and maybe give some insights, which the fans didn't have before now.
Yeah. And hopefully you've been enjoying the show. Hopefully by this time you subscribed. If this is your first episode, by the way, go ahead and hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to this, because we drop these every 2 weeks. New episode. You've got 22 previous episodes, if this is your first one, to go back and listen to. So if you're on a trip, or if you're just wanting to sit down and watch some Justice League and have some behind-the-scene commentary of each episode, then you can put us on as you go through. It should be fun. So we do appreciate every single one of you who questions and puts those queries out there on Twitter for us to ask our guests. That's always good to get feedback from you, and hopefully you've had your question asked and answered, and we love the interaction.
Absolutely. And so subscribe, leave a review, because we not only need it, but we appreciate it. So, well, this is another one in the can, James.
It is.
I mean, I think it is indeed, right?
It's been canned.
So like, I just want everyone out there who's listening to stay tuned because the conversation will continue.